Hurrah.
Yay.
Serology Test.
He said fill in blank matching, essay, and multiple choice.
And by essay, for the most part, those essay questions, they're not like explain this disease state in depth. They're do a twofold or a threefold serial dilution in which you have to have a minimum of 3 mils left in all the tubes when you're finished.
Okay.
That kind of essay, where you need to write it out. I already told you guys one of the questions that's on the test is that graph of serological response to hepatitis B infection.
Basically, you just have to write.
So that's a picture that you, or it basically says describe the response. I don't want y'all describing it, that will take you forever to grade. I want you to draw that picture, okay? And then if you wanna write some stuff at the bottom, like as you can see, Mr. Britt, hepatitis B surface antigen is the first one to elevate, you know, or something like that, you're welcome to. But draw me a picture, give me an idea, because that's what I'm looking at,
Yes,
alright? And I know you can memorize that picture and not have any idea what you're talking about. But just understand, that's the test and the way they respond to a person after they've had an acute hepatitis B infection, okay? So there's no reason why any of you should miss that question, right? I mean, I'm telling you it's on there, and it's worked by.
How many essay questions will there be? Like, how many of
Well,
each?
I am gonna change a few questions on the test, but as I'm looking at it right now, there's 40 questions.
Total?
Yep, but now don't hold me to that, because you may walk in here tomorrow and there may be 45, and I may take some away and add some. Because I'm gonna look at the way I gave the lectures, and I'm gonna look at fair questions. If I see a question on here and I go, I didn't go over that very well, I'm gonna take it off there. I'm trying to be as fair as I can on it, okay? All right, know the difference between specificity and sensitivity. That should be fresh on your mind, we just talked about it today, okay? I'm kind of just reading down like subject areas, so I'm not going in any particular order. The next thing I want to talk about is the cold hemagglutination test. All right, just kind of in different orders or whatever. Some people, you guys tell me, what do you think I should ask you about that? The cold hemagglutination test, that cold agglutinin that you guys set up, that serial dilution. If you were me, what would you ask about it? To where I can figure out whether you got it.
What kind of, what color top tube would you use? And what would you do in order to transport it?
Okay, yeah, good. Like,
Red soft.
yeah, exactly. So how do you transport it? After you draw it, you put it in warm water. Good. What kind of antibody are we detecting?
IgM.
IgM, all right? It is an IgM antibody that we're looking for in a cold autoagglutinin test. Now, I know when we shook out the tubes yesterday, I didn't get the answers in a couple of them that I was hoping for, but remember, on the PowerPoint, it says there is a significant titer that you have to look for. There's a certain number.
1 to
32.
1 to 32. 1 to 32 or greater. That is a significant, in other words, if it goes out that far, that person probably has a cold agglutinin syndrome, all right? Remember that number, 1 to 32. You might not see that on multiple choice. Hint, hint. All right. No questions about doing a serial dilution. As far as if I ask you, twofold serial dilution, what's the titer in the 4 to 2? You can tell me, right? Straight, 1 to 2, 1 to 4, 1 to 8. Right, that'd be the 4 to 2. Now on the test, it may be the 8 to 2. You can't memorize that, just understand that's what I'm asking for if I ask you that.
Excuse me.
Know the symptoms if someone has lupus. What's one of the things that there's a picture of?
The butterfly.
Butterfly,
Rash.
and I think it was Aunt said somebody you know had what?
Photosensitivity.
My little cousin, he had when he was younger.
Photosensitivity, right? So there's 2 very good symptoms that you might want to jot down. Photosensitivity and that butterfly rash. An antibody that's directed against its own nuclear material.
That's
ANA?
It is an autoantibody, but
ANA?
anti-nuclear antibody would be a good example of that. I mean, basically say the word, it makes sense, anti-nuclear antibody, right? An antibody directed against its own nucleus. Who gets autoimmune diseases more, women or men?
Women.
Right. Make sure you look over rheumatoid factor, that test, and there is a test sometimes that can give you false positives for that. So you guys look that up on your own on the PowerPoint, all right? Look up rheumatoid factor, and there's a test that'll interfere with that and give you a positive as well. And it's another serology test that we talked about. Okay, I've got a section on here, guys, where it's gonna be a lot of matching. Unless I mess with it, there's about 12 different words that go with 12 different hints, okay? For example, if I said, because we talked about this in class, if I said this is an opportunistic infection that occurs in a lot of AIDS patients, there was a picture of it.
Opposite sarcoma.
Okay, see where I'm going with that? You need to be able to, like, if you have a hint, be able to match it with the disease state. If I said a retrovirus, what would you tell me? AIDS, right? If I said histoplasmosis, what would you tell me?
That's gonna be fungal.
Fungal serology.
You get that from chicken houses, right?
I see that's a Jason question.
I did that one or the one that starts with the CO.
Crypto. It's,
No, not the crypto,
No?
but the other one.
isn't that the bird flu?
Yeah, one of them are from chicken houses.
All right.
Did you say fungal serology? Is that what you said?
What if I said German measles?
Rubella.
Good. What if I said an equine infectious anemia?
Coggins test.
Coggins. What if I said a way to quantitate antigen antibody reactions?
Parallel testing.
No.
What'd you say?
A way to quantitate antigen antibody reactions. In other words, your D-dimer is positive, so now what do? If you do it, remember I told you.
Serial dilution.
Serial dilution. If you want to quantitate just how strong the antigen antibody reaction is, do a serial dilution and see how far it goes out, what the titer is, right? That goes along with that cold agglutinin test. There's a reason why it says 1 to 32 is significant, because that means the test is positive, but it goes out to a 1 to 32 dilution. That's how positive it is. That's where the separation line is from whether they have a true cold agglutinin or they don't. Oocyst.
That's gonna be in the poop of the cat.
Toxoplasma gondii. Toxoplasma gondii.
Once again.
Okay.
Toxoplasma
I
gondii.
mean, you're not wrong.
So again, we're gonna have some matching, alright, there's a matching section
I
on
would've got
this.
it.
It doesn't go way in depth, it's just telling me that you basically at least have keywords that you can understand the principle of certain things. And some of these have more than one answer, so you'll get credit if you put, your one.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, Mr. Turner.
This won't be Scantron then, right? This is fill in the blank about
No, and I wish it was, trust me, if I had time, it would be, because that Scantron, it helps us all, because I can grade the test in like 7 seconds.
So we can stick around tomorrow. We have to stick around pretty much just to figure out when we make all our tests in lab, right? You know, we can move on,
We're
right?
doing a lab practical afterwards, I mean, we'll get them graded as quick as we can get them graded.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We gotta pick up checks.
Okay,
We gotta pick up checks.
We can go to the next over there. You know, I'm stupid, I
I'll go.
in HIV testing, a positive antibody screen is usually followed and verified by what kind of test?
Western blot.
Good.
Good job.
In rubella infection, the fetus is at greatest risk in which trimester?
First one.
First trimester. What, out of all the let's talk about the hepatitis real quick. If I said the one you don't wanna get,
Hepatitis
C.
C.
why?
Because.
Chronic.
Yeah, it's chronic and.
Does more damage to your body.
Okay.
The secondary infections won't kill you, right? Is that right? Or is that?
Well, chronic infections just basically, for whatever reason, they stay persistent, and you basically never really develop an immunity to it, and it kind of comes and goes, but eventually it can lead to cirrhosis. And they've done studies that indicate, for whatever reason, people that get chronic hepatitis, sometimes later on in life, they end up getting liver cancer. So, all right, let's talk about the pregnancy test for a minute. Which subunit detects a positive pregnancy test? Beta. So, right. Comparison of an old kit to a new kit.
Parallel testing.
Parallel testing. You're doing a cold agglutinin test. I didn't go over this with you guys, so listen up. You're doing a cold agglutinin test. How many tubes did you guys set up when you did it?
10.
10 tubes. What would you have done if all 10 tubes would have been positive?
Then you had to go out farther. You had to do 10 more, right?
That is true. If you have a positive reaction, you're supposed to actually put it in a heat block to make sure it goes away. That's showing you signs. But you can't really report out a result if you have 10 tubes that agglutinate, right?
You
So
have to have a titer.
you have to have a titer, so you would repeat the test, and like Wendy said, go out further, because that physician, they're gonna wanna know what's the titer, okay? So you can't just say greater than the 10th tube. They don't want to do that. You've got to give them a titer. So you would go out further.
With
In
the
most
same
cases, if you set up 10 tubes, it's not gonna go out that far. I never had one that went out to the 10th tube.
Would you do it at the same fold or
You would have to for it to be.
Whatever your procedure manual tells you. Most procedure manuals tell you to do a 2-fold serial dilution when you do a cold agglutinin. All right, another thing. I think I told you guys to really concentrate on hepatitis A, B, and C. I'm gonna throw in D. Okay, so go back and read over D a little bit too, because I'm seeing a question on here that concerns hepatitis D. You guys remember seeing something about hepatitis D cannot be activated unless you also have hepatitis B, right? B and D go together. You can't get D without B. You can get B without D, but you can't get D without B. A group of diseases in which a body mechanism of self-recognition is altered. Good. You guys don't even need a roof.
Oh, which,
we appreciate it though?
Systemic fungal infections. What kind of
respiratory?
spores, right? Inhalation of bacteria with spores. Okay, now there are questions on the test, guys, there are two really pretty high point questions talking about doing serial dilutions and how to do them, okay? You gotta understand that. If you're mixed up on it, I'm gonna be here today till, I got an appointment with somebody at 3, so I know I'll be here till 4. So if you guys have any questions, if you wanna just sit down one-on-one with me, it's not that I'm telling you what's on the test, but I'll tell you how to do a serial dilution. I don't want you knowing whether the test question is gonna be a 2-fold, a 3-fold, or a 4-fold. But I will tell you, just so you understand it, that in this question, it is going to tell you that you have to have a certain amount left, a minimum. Like, for example, no matter what you tell me, after this procedure is over, you have to have a minimum of 4 milliliters of fluid in every tube, okay? So, you gotta think about it. You can't just memorize, okay, you always get 200 microliters of buffer, 100 microliters. Don't do it that way. Understand it to where you could not only do 200 and 100, you could do 3 gallons, 2 gallons, all right?
I'll be done.
where does the hepatitis B surface antigen hang out at in the hepatitis B virus?
It's gonna be on the outside.
Sure, you've been studying the outer coat, right? There's a picture on your PowerPoint, shows where that's at. Torch test, tell me what the letters stand for.
Toxoplasmosis gondii, other, rubella, CMV, and herpes.
Okay, alright. Give me an example of something that would be in the other category.
Syphilis.
Syphilis, didn't Jason say that's the main one?
Yeah.
Okay, syphilis, and I think they mentioned the Epstein-Barr, and then I threw in the varicella zoster, I believe, right? The presence of an anti-hepatitis B surface antigen would be an indication of what?
Recent infection?
No, that's gonna
Remember I said, what did I say, the very first
That's
thing
gonna be
before I said that?
blatant, like later on after, right?
Anti-hepatitis B.
Oh,
You're correct,
But
but that's what,
recovery.
yeah, and what's another word for recovery?
Oh,
Convalescent.
Good, remember that word, I had to look it up a couple years back. Convalescence, all right, convalescence is another name for recovery, all right? So, make sure you read the questions, because there's a big difference between a hepatitis B surface antigen and an anti-hepatitis B surface antibody, all right? A hepatitis B surface antigen is the very first marker that can indicate hepatitis B. Like, if you test that and it's positive, you better double glove on that specimen because it probably has active hepatitis B in it. It's the first marker to rise. When you draw that picture, the very first little mountain slope is the hepatitis B surface antigen, okay? But toward the end, when you're starting to see immunity, you will develop an anti-hepatitis B surface antibody, and that's a good thing. That's letting you know, hey, not only is that infection over, you are gonna be immune from hepatitis B from now on. Make sense? So, be able to answer questions that are directed in that way. Tell me some conditions that can cause a false positive pregnancy test.
Testicular cancer, yeah.
Testicular cancer in men is one.
Uterine cancer.
The mold, the hydro.
Yeah, I have to think about it. It's something called a hydatiid or a hittatid or something. Hittatid mold. All right.
That's embryonic structure.
It's a cyst. Basically, that's a little cyst that develops in the,
It affects your body and thinking you're pregnant or not, because my friend had one and she said, seriously, it looks just like a circle in a sack, is all it looks like.
remember, and I think what's that word? There's another one, choriocarcinoma. It's
I can't pronounce it.
crazy word, but be able to recognize it, okay? I did tell you guys to scratch out aspirin, all right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make aspirin the answer, all right? But I'm just telling you, make sure you have aspirin scratch out, because it's not gonna be one of them, all right? 'Cause I can't find enough information that confirms that. All right, guys, I feel like,
It'd be really weird.
I mean, I just gave you an A.
Let's test it.
Okay, so, you know, you got 3 PowerPoints, alright, you just got 3. I know that the test is tomorrow, but you're now at 10 o'clock today, you got 3 PowerPoints to learn, and I definitely just helped you out, so just try to learn the basics about each one.